Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to the latest episode of the Weekend Crusaders. My name is Sean from Wasser Creek. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. It is June now. Wow, can you believe we've been doing this show for almost 6 months? I can't.
Yeah, I can, because I just looked back through our list and I realized we have intentionally watched a whole lot of shitty movies.
Was it when we were watching today's shitty movie that you were just like, man, we have put ourselves through, like, this is episode 22. So in theory, if you think about it, we put ourselves through at minimum 44 hours of torture this year.
Oh, God. And that's only the ones that were intended to be stickers.
Yes, we are movie masochists, apparently, in this league.
Anyway, you, the viewer.
Yes, you, the viewer. But we got 5 movies again to talk about this week that came out during the week of June 4th through the 6th. We got some favorites among this list that are dear to Brian and I's heart. We got some that we are not fans of. Sorry, my eye just went like totally plot on me. But yes, we got some fun ones here. We're going to start with the feature film here. And this is one movie that I think I said last week has become kind of a beloved sci-fi favorite over the last decade. Wow.
No, the fucking latecomers who were like, it was a great movie. Like, yeah, why did you guys, support it when it was out?
I was gonna say, like, damn, that was you don't.
Well, no, this movie didn't do great when it came out, and it's like it was awesome. Then I tried to tell everybody, and everybody's like, yeah, whatever. And then now everybody praises it. I'm like,
I agree with that. I think when people came out, well, here's the thing. Well, let's
okay. Go ahead, do your thing first. Yeah.
It's like we're going way into this stuff. We haven't even said what the movie was yet. Which, if you look at the picture, you know what movie we're talking about. Our feature film is the 2014 time loop sci-fi film Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow came out June 6, 2014. Had a budget of $178 million. Had a weekend opening of $28.76 million. It was number 3 its opening weekend, behind The Fault in Our Stars in its first week and Maleficent in its second week. Finished with a box office of $370.54 million, $100.2 million domestic, and $270.3 million international. Now, yes, I'm kind of inclined to agree with Brian on this one. I think around this time was really when Cruise was kind of doing the crazy shit. It was like he was kind of like rubbing everyone the wrong way. Wasn't that around that time frame?
I don't know.
Crazy jumping up and down. Or that was
that was back during War of the Worlds.
Yeah, that's right. But Cruise was still kind of in that shit zone kind of thing. Like, outside of the Mission Impossible movies, like, not a lot of people really wanted to watch Tom Cruise do anything, outside of Tropic Thunder. But
this one had 2 problems I know of off the top, that marketing wise.
They couldn't figure out what fucking title they wanted to call it.
The trailers didn't do much for a lot of people.
It didn't do a lot for me.
First of all, this is a hard movie to really understand the concept of until you're in it. But then 2, there's the title thing, which it's based on the manga. It's All You Need Is Kill, which, as cool as it sounds, is kind of nonsensical. So then they went with Edge of Tomorrow, which is just painfully bland and cliche. And then they later tried to remarket it as Live, Die, Repeat, which, like, no, you don't get to change it once it's been released. Don't try to.
I prefer Edge of Tomorrow over Live, Die, Repeat.
No, that's what I said. That's what I'm saying. Edge of Tomorrow is your title. Deal with it.
Yeah, it's like Birds of Prey, the emancipation of one Harley Quinn, blah 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 blah, and there's like
also became Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey.
Yeah, it's like no, you can't double step. You can't do.
It's late, folks, just so you know.
Yes, exactly. It's very late. So we're just doing this because, like, fuck it, let's just shoot it tonight. But yeah, it's one of those where I think I agree. I watched the trailer for it and I was just like, I'm not super excited to see this. I'll check it out, but I'm not like, this is gonna be great. Because to me, the one thing I remember from this trailer, and it's the one thing that I remembered about this movie prior, is the awesome, like, yoga pose of Emily Blunt, where she does the arch back thing. Like, that is one of the most, like, if there's anything that we're gonna remember for Emily Blunt,
that's the best shot of its kind since the trailer for Entrapment and Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Exactly. I mean, we love Emily Blunt. She's a fantastic actress. She's gonna have a phenomenal career the rest of the way through. Obviously, we love her in The Quiet Place and everything else. But that shot of her doing the arch back with, like, the muscles and everything, like, damn, Emily Blunt got fucking fit for this movie. Like, that's what sold me in the movie. It wasn't Tom Cruise. It was Emily Blunt is set for this film. But to me, the best part of this movie was that you have to watch Tom Cruise die like 1,000 times.
Oh.
I love Tom Cruise. I do. I am probably one of the few people that will like defend his ass. Everyone's like, he's that weird son. He's weird. I'm like, I don't care. Granted, there are certain situations where I do care. I don't care what he believes in. I don't care what he's doing in his personal life in situations like this. He puts on enjoyable movies.
And he's the hardest working motherfucker in Hollywood.
He is. I mean, to fucking keep working through that scene when he broke his foot in Fallout. I mean, I appreciate Tom Cruise. I like Tom Cruise's movies. Yeah, he's a weird dude. So is Joaquin Phoenix, but we love him. But I mean, it's one I know you don't. But it's like, yes, there are situations where they do some messed up shit, and we're like, oh, we can't talk about Kevin Spacey anymore because of what Kevin Spacey did. Even though I really liked Kevin Spacey, but I'm not allowed to talk about Kevin Spacey anymore. Tom Cruise didn't do that. Tom Cruise just was really, really into Scientology and really, really loved Katie Holmes. There's nothing wrong with that. And so everyone just turned on him. I was like, dude, the dude still puts out like awesome Mission Impossible movies once the third one hit. And all these other films. I enjoy TC Legend, how the Army Action Team people call him. I like that nickname. I think it's a badass nickname. But him dying in this movie over and over again was fucking funny. Especially some of the ways he dies. Especially like the time where he tries to roll under the truck.
Yeah.
and Bill Paxton's like, oh, well, that's just not right.
I also like when he just like hurt himself and Emily Blunt would walk and be like, no, I'm okay. Bam.
Yes, exactly. See, it was enjoyable. Like where it's like, you broke, you're like, no, I think I'm good. I think I walk. Boom. It was funny watching Tom Cruise die like 1,000 times in this film. But that's the thing, though. It's like that was a selling point. Emily Blunt's yoga pose, Tom Cruise dying a shitload of times. But when you actually see this movie, there's so much more to it. It's sci-fi, like Starship Troopers meets Groundhog Day. Sure, that's in a nutshell. That's how you would explain it. But it is done so incredibly well, led by Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. The creatures, you don't get to see a whole lot of them when they show up. I mean, they look really cool. You don't give a clear enough a visual, except for the was it the alphas? Mm-hmm. I think those are the ones you really actually get.
They move so fast, you can't really.
Yeah, they're so quick. They just look like a blob of just like limbs coming at you. But I mean, even the what do they call was it the J-pop crew or whatever you call the group he's with in the movie? Every time he starts the war, he's with like J Crew or whatever the hell.
Oh yeah, J Crew. Yeah.
They're constantly just doing the same scene over and over again, but you learn to like those guys in a small part. Plus, Bill Paxton is great in the small part he's in. But yeah, I really, really enjoy this movie. I do agree that when it hits the third act, it kind of starts to lose a lot of its steam because at that point, when it gets to the point where it's like, oh, we're on our last life, we can't risk it anymore. It's like, well, now it's not fun. Now it's just a sci-fi movie.
Well, the whole crux of the movie, you've taken away that gimmick, and now it's just another sci-fi movie.
Exactly, Brian. What are your thoughts?
It's still well made, but it's like, well, we were having fun with that thing.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Edge of Tomorrow?
Yeah. Well, I'm always a sucker for a good time loop movie. For starters, and I do love most everything Tom Cruise does. So this movie, I was really excited about it, even despite the bad marketing for it and stuff. And I was actually, I loved it. Again, except for the third act, which I still like, but I do feel it loses a little bit of its steam in the third act. Yeah, this movie, I think more than a lot of them, felt like kind of like Boss Level, which obviously came out years later. But it's the same.
I prefer Boss Level over Edge of Tomorrow. I'm telling you that right now.
But I'm saying both of those. I mean, because there's lots of time loop movies. There's Happy Death Day, and there's the Groundhog Day, of course, and many at Palm Springs. But this one, it felt closest to Boss Level, and they both felt like a video game. Because it's like every time you play, you get a little bit farther. Like, okay, wait, I made this mistake. So next time I got to try this. So every time you get a little bit farther. So you're like, well, let me try this one. A little bit farther. And so they felt like that video game. And then, so I really liked the kind of feel of that and how he actually, not only is living the same day over and over again, but he's like learning something and trying different things. They do different takes in the same scenes. I always love when they do that, especially the kind of comedy elements they add to it sometimes. But yeah, I mean, it was surprisingly funny. I thought it was super well made as far as the action and the special effects. Emily Blunt was awesome as a Full Metal bitch, the angel of Verdun, whatever you want to call her. And Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, which I actually liked it. I thought they did his character very well. He starts out the movie as this, kind of cocky, almost like a PR guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I do this so I don't have to do that. And then the general's like, well, I guess we're going to take care of that. But he's like, you're going to the front. And so basically he's like kind of knocked on his ass and has to, actually do something besides just avoid the fight. But yeah, it's a great movie with a great cast. Again, featuring the late great Bill Paxton. Great action. I thought the score was awesome. Doug Liman, who directed, he's done a lot of stuff I like. I mean, did we talk about Go in this movie? Or I know I didn't pick it up for this.
No,
show.
no, you chose not to go with Go.
Yeah. So, but I love Go. I love Swingers, Mr. and Mrs. Smith of this. I love
Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I'm actually a fan of Jumper, which a lot of people don't like. I mean, don't love it, but it's fun. And they worked with Tom Cruise again in American Made, I think it was.
I did not see that one.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a fun movie. It's different. It's something I'm surprised Tom Cruise did. It seemed like a just role kind of almost anybody could have done, but it was fun. But yeah, I mean, this is a well-made movie. It's tons of fun. I would recommend it to anyone, especially, I mean, if you like sci-fi, if you like time loop movies, if you just like good action, I think you'll have fun with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main problem, and like I agree with you, it's a lot like a video game where you're gonna die. So you need to learn and test the waters. Like, okay, they go left, so we need to go right. This one's going up, so we need to go down. Like, it's like in a video game. You're going to sacrifice some lives so you can figure out the pattern of the game so you can move further in, which is funny when you're watching them play because, like, and that's the one part where it's like with Tom Cruise, it's like, at least with his character, because he's the one who's repeating the day. Emily Blunt doesn't repeat the day. So he's got to, like, introduce himself every damn day, then get her on point, then get her to do this, and then to follow and all this kind of stuff, which is like, God, that'd be so freaking exhausting.
It is. It's one of those things where you wonder how many times he actually went through this. Because like, there's like the one scene where you don't realize that they'd been in that barn place before. Yeah. And he says something. And she's like, "Wait a minute, how many times have we been here before?" He's like, "I don't remember the number he gave."
It was because he knew her coffee, how she liked her coffee and shit.
So he was, like 3 sugars in it or something like that.
Yeah. Which
and because she realized that from this, he says, you never make it farther than this point. Everything I've tried, you die here. Exactly. And so you can kind of see he's kind of getting defeated because not only is he not getting any farther, but now he cares about her. So there's that whole thing thrown into it. And so I do like how the characters actually really do grow throughout this.
Well, and that's the part where it's kind of double-edged sword because yes, the characters need to grow and expand and stuff like that. You start to see a relationship build between them, but that also is where the movie starts to slow itself down because it's slowing down the movie because not only they're not dying so instantly right away. It's actually like we're gonna take a beat and we're actually gonna start developing these characters now further than just they survived a day and then we get to the inevitable now we're on their last shot and then it's like okay well now everything is the way it is and the ending is just kind of it's not anticlimactic. It's not by any means anticlimactic, but it's just like. Once they did that slowdown where they're trying to develop a relationship between the two, and then we get to that next point, and then we get that whole conversation in the office with the general, and it kind of just halts the action of the film, and it was so boom, 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 and then it just stops, and then it just takes a little bit to get it back up again, and then by the time it does, the movie's over. And it's like it's not, it doesn't deter from the film. The film is still great. It's just that it is on. Like jet fuel for like the first hour and 10 minutes, and then it slows down for like 15, 20 minutes, and then it's trying to get you back into the momentum of it, and then by the time it does, it's over. But nonetheless, we really, really enjoyed this film, which is why you and I both agreed to make it the feature. And then, of course, there's supposed to be a sequel coming.
There was recently because Emily Blunt's obviously been making the rounds promoting Quiet Place 2, and a couple of times she's been asked about this. What's that?
And Jungle Cruise.
But she's been making the rounds talking about this stuff. And so she's obviously been asked about this a couple of times, about the sequel to Edge of Tomorrow. And basically she said that, a script's been written and it's really good, which I'd heard before. It's like, a year ago, like they have this great script they love. But now they're like, well, we don't, it's hard to say because of, the pandemic and how things have changed in financing. And the biggest problem now is because you got these big stars, and especially with like somebody like Tom Cruise, it's like the scheduling and stuff like that. And so it's like, she's like, I hope we'll make it. But there's no immediate plans. We haven't figured it out. So if we're going to see it, it's probably still a few years away.
Well, I mean, that was the big problem. It's like, it wasn't that it was because it was Tom Cruise. It's because, it was Tom Cruise, and Emily Blunt was, I mean, popular, but not where she is now. Emily Blunt is now at that same level. Well, not at Tom Cruise.
Not quite at the same level. But
there's very, very few people who are at Tom Cruise's level. But she is now up at that level with like Charlize Theron and Viola Davis and all them, where she's a big name now.
She's in demand. Yeah.
And so she's got so many other things to do. Like, I'm sure they're probably going to try to work another Mary Poppins movie out of her. And, obviously she's got A Quiet Place 3 coming. And like I said, Jungle Cruise probably will get a sequel at some point. The movie's not out yet, but let's face it, everything's getting sequels. That probably will get one. So she's going to be having harder to finally. It's trying to find those two because those are really the only two they need. Because they can create whoever else for the rest of this movie. They just need those two, and it's finding those two available at the same time that's going to be the hardest point. But we'll see what happens. This is a movie that I don't think we need a sequel. We don't.
I honestly feel like it does not need a sequel. The ending, I thought was a little cryptic. There was I had questions about the ending, but it's like not enough that I was like, I need another movie to answer them. Yeah, I would be perfectly fine if this is what now the way they're talking about how this new script kind of takes it to another direction, another level, and it really amps up. I would love to see if they love the script that much. I'm more than happy to watch it, but I'm perfectly happy if this is a single movie too.
Yeah, I'm totally okay with this being a perfect little one movie adventure that we don't need to expand on and grow forth. But we will see what happens. Edge Tomorrow, I think you and I both looked. It's not currently free, available on any streaming services.
Yeah, I'm going to save you all some time tonight. Nothing we're talking about is going to be available for free anywhere. You can rent them, whatever. And you should, because most of them are good. Except for, I will say, Edge of Tomorrow is apparently available to stream on TNT and True TV's websites, if your cable packaging includes those. So there you go.
All right. So going on to our stinker film, we literally just got done watching this, and then we're like, screw it, let's just shoot the show right now after this movie ended. This movie, I told you guys last week on the show, I hate this movie. I had every reason to love this movie. It's based off of a TV show that I loved as a kid. It's got, I would say, a funny cast in it. And it's got fucking dinosaurs. What could go wrong? Everything. Everything can go wrong. And that is why it's our stinker. And this is the 2009 failed comedy, Land of the Lost. Land of the Lost came out June 5th, 2009, had a budget of $100 million, had a weekend opening of $18.8 million, was number 3 its opening weekend behind The Hangover in its first week and Up in its second week. It had a finished box office of $68.77 million, $49.4 million domestic, and $19.3 million international. I didn't watch the original Land of the Lost series back when, like way back then. I watched the 1990s Saturday morning kids show, Land of the Lost. I loved that show because, I mean, you give me anything dinosaur, I'm gonna sit down and watch it. I mean, there's Dino Riders, there was dinosaurs, of course, Jurassic Park. Like, if you give me a dinosaur movie, I'm locked in. I'm good to go. So when I heard that they were going to make a Land of the Lost film, and then they casted Will Ferrell, Danny McBride, and Anna Friel, who you and I both love from Pushing Daisies, I was ecstatic. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so great. This is going to be so good. And then you watch the movie, and you and I both watching this again, we're like, God, this sucks so much. It's so not good. And then we also found out that, like, there was another actor that we actually like in this. We just didn't recognize who he was until we looked it up. And then he's not bad in the movie, but it was what's his name? I never say his name right.
From Jorma Tacone? Yeah,
from the Lonely Island guys. Right. He plays Chaka, like the monkey kind of character. I could go into a little bit further, but let's let Brian take over on this one. Brian, what are your thoughts on Land of the Lost?
So I didn't really remember. I'd seen this movie, but I don't really remember anything about it. And so Sean says, this has got to be your stinker. I said, okay, you feel strongly about it. I agree.
Oh, there was no like negotiations. Like, no, this is the fucking stinker.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay, I'll trust your judgment on this, and I'll watch it. And I did. And yeah, it was mostly just, it was one of those, this is one of those stinkers that's not actively bad. It's just so bland and boring, and it's like literally we're sitting here trying to watch it. We both keep drifting off. Oh, let's look up something about this actor we saw on here, because it's just like,
And
it's hard to stay focused.
Brian, I think beyond like 7 times watching it.
Yeah, and Will Ferrell for me is very hit and miss. I mean, he's usually at least amusing, but I mean, some of his movies are really funny, and some of them are like just completely kind of blah. This is definitely not one of his better roles. I mean, there's funny lines and funny scenes. Well, I don't know about whole funny scenes. There's at least some funny lines and moments, but most of it just kind of falls flat. Danny McBride, who I actually like in a lot of things, sometimes he can be a little much. I think he was actually decent in this movie. I thought he was funny. But again, we can only do what the script has for him. And Anna Friel is, I really liked her on Pushing Daisies. And here she was just kind of there. She's like any other actress could have played this role and it wouldn't have mattered because they didn't really give her a whole lot to do, except apparently she can speak this prehistoric primates language, which maybe I missed something if they explain that. I don't know.
If you didn't see it, I didn't hear it either because I don't remember. She just started doing it, and we were both like, "How does she understand?" And I was like, "I don't fucking know it. I don't care enough to go back and figure it out."
Exactly. But she mostly just reminded me, like even now looking at a picture of her on my screen, she's basically an English version of Evangeline Lilly, is what I said, because she looks a lot like her. She kind of acts a lot like her. Just give her an English accent, like, hey, it's a new person. But yeah, I did not enjoy this movie. I've seen far worse, but it was just mostly boring. I think that it was so. I don't know where all the money went for this movie, because it's like they basically had a cast of 4 people. They said, go to the desert, we'll stick a few props in the sand, and that'll be your entire set for the most part.
And then we'll have a bunch of lizard costumes, and then
some really bad rubber lizard costumes. Mixed with some really janky CGI. Which, tell about the moment, John.
So I'm gonna say there's one part of this movie that I did like. The obvious part, I like the fucking T-Rex Grumpy, because that's probably the one part of the movie that I enjoyed is when Will Smith. That would have made this movie a whole fucking lot better if Will Smith was in this movie. It's when Will Ferrell's talking shit about the T-Rex, about being stupid and its brain's the size of a walnut. And the T-Rex stops and it's like, bitch. Like,
the T-Rex barely understands English. Not only human, but English.
No one else on this world speaks English except for, I guess, the lizards. But yet the T-Rex understands English. But then the T-Rex starts to create a vendetta against Will Ferrell. Like, he drops a walnut outside the cave and it's like watching him like, yeah, motherfucker. You think it's like, that shit's funny to me, but it's not like gut busting laugh out loud. It's just like, okay, that's good. But like at one point, Brian's just like, man, this movie just looks terrible. And I was very defended going, okay, well, we're not expecting Jurassic Park here, Brian. Like the T-Rex looks fine. And then Will Ferrell does the Flintstone, like writing down the tail. And it looks so.
It was so bad.
I was like, Brian, it's really not that. I was like, I can't say anything now.
Anytime it was dinosaurs of their own, it was not Jurassic Park level quality.
Well, yeah.
But it was decent. I mean, the most of the motion of them looked a little funny, but the dinosaur animation by themselves looked decent. But anytime the humans had to interact with them, it just looked so bad. I
would say it was on the level of like, if you remember the sci-fi comedy Evolution.
Oh, it's been a while, but I remember that.
But I would say it was on that in terms of like when they had to interact with like the CGI and stuff like that. But yeah, soon I was literally about to defend it, and then that didn't happen, and it looked.
He stopped mid-sentence,
and I was like, I was going to defend it, but now I can't anymore. So
he's like, "Oh, we're not expecting Jurassic Park level, but you." Never mind.
That was the hardest laugh of the entire movie. Was me basically about to defend it that I hate this movie, but I'm going to defend, and now I'm done.
It was like, it's one of those movies that like it tries to be this big budget reimagining of this old classic TV show. But the problem is, it's like it didn't feel big budget. It felt like if you could put this movie as like Saturday morning, and it would feel just like another episode of the Saturday morning show to me.
The thing about Land of the Lost, at least the 90s kids show, it was basically Lost in Space prehistoric edition. It's about a family who gets thrown back in time in the prehistoric era, and they have to learn to deal with it. They got a pet dinosaur, and they got the lizards. It's like and they got an evil T-Rex. I can't remember what they called it, but that's what it was. And in this movie, it's not a family. It's one idiot, or a smart idiot. Which I'm sorry, it's hard to believe Will Ferrell is this incredibly smart scientist, just like it was incredibly hard to believe Mark Wahlberg was a scientist in the Transformers films. I got a transformer. No, shut up, Mark Wahlberg. You're not a scientist. But it's hard to believe Will Ferrell is this incredibly smart guy when he's being Will Ferrell throughout the whole movie. And then you got Danny McBride basically being Danny McBride, which works but doesn't at the same time. And then you got Anna Frill, who's like Brian said, we like her because in Pushing Daisies she's adorable, and she's spunky. She's a fun, cute little girl. But in this, you could have gotten any actress to play this role. There was nothing unique about Anna in this role besides being British that makes her stand out, And then eventually, inevitably she was going to have to make out with Will Ferrell, because Will Ferrell has to, make out with every attractive woman in any movie he's in, which Brian made that argument about Adam Sandler. And I'm going to defend Adam Sandler right now and go that Will Ferrell does it just as bad, if not worse.
I wouldn't say worse. I would say he does it probably.
Adam Sandler, at least to me, has more charisma and reasons for the girls to like him in his movies than Will Ferrell acting like a buffoon jackass in 90% of his films and have no reason for the character. Because there's no reason for Anna Farrell's character to ever like Will Ferrell in this movie. He does nothing in this film to ever warrant her to have a crush on him. Whereas at least in Adam Sandler's movies, he does something that at least makes the girls want to like him. But that's the problem with this film. Are there some funny little lines here and there? Does Chaka have some funny little moments here and there? Sure, but ultimately the jokes fall flat. They're bland, and it's just them kind of walking around in the desert, like Brian said, with the occasional dinosaur showing up, or the occasional little this is like a gas station 76, or this looks like the Golden State Bridge. It's just here, and let's have a psychedelic part where they get drunk, and let's have a giant bug, and all of a sudden Will Ferrell finds a banjo and all this shit. It's boring and bland. And when you're having a movie that has a show like this, that I'm not going to say it's a rich history of the show, because it's not, but you have so many possibilities that you could really try to make this thing work. And it just felt like every run-of-the-mill Will Ferrell movie. I agree with Brian that Will Ferrell is very hit or miss. He either is on point, like with Anchorman or the other guys, or a lot of others high-end companies. And then there's other movies like Semi-Pro, Kicking and Screaming, and
Watson.
Holmes and Watson, where it's not funny, and you just dislike Will Ferrell as a character. There's no reason to like Will Ferrell as a character in this film. Anyway, the most likable character in this movie is the fucking monkey, which it's fine. I mean, you ever want no reason to really hate Danny McBride, because progressively through the film, Danny McBride actually becomes more of a nicer guy throughout the whole thing. And then why the fuck did they get Leonard Nimoy? Like, Leonard Nimoy is, and then he his character just disappears and never comes back.
Sure.
Once you figure out that the person that they were helping was the villain the whole time, you never hear Leonard Nimoy's voice again. He never comes back. There's one point where he comes up, he's just like a sentence. I go, is that fucking Leonard Nimoy? And Brian's like, yep. I go, man, fuck this movie. It's just...
Which, and one other thing I want to say about this movie is it's based on this, it was a children's show in the 70s. Yes, mid-70s.
Yeah.
It was a children's show again in the 90s. And then they go to this movie, and within the first 20 minutes, Danny McBride's making a joke about Anna Friel's character getting wet, and he's not talking about. I'm like, what is your audience for this movie?
There are definitely a lot of crude sex jokes, but not so bad, but enough to the point where I'm going.
Enough that you're like.
Because the monkey's clearly for kids.
I think if they had made this a PG kids movie, I think that it could have worked. If they had chosen an audience that were going to play to this audience, they could have made it a fun kids movie.
Yeah,
or if they wanted to go complete the other direction, like something like, okay, a lot of people don't like this, but it's just an example Baywatch, where you're an R-rated movie that's no, just in that you're doing you're doing basically a parody of the show.
I know what you
R-rated.
God, Baywatch.
They could make that work, but they like try to do this PG-13 thing where they don't know who their audience is for it. So.
They teeter on. They want to make kind of an R comedy, but they still need to be able to sell tickets to people who are under 17.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, I mean, you have Chaka, who's like this, you know, well, he's not a cute monkey, he's fucking ugly, but he's supposed to be a monkey. Oh, you know, but then he keeps grabbing, you know, Anna Frill's boobs, you know. But it's just like
can't blame the guy. Just
no, I agree, but you know, and then there's like, you know, like shit jokes, there's pee jokes, which go on way too long, and just like every Will Ferrell comedy. You know, it's basically like the equivalent of the milk was a bad choice scene, where he's like keeps dousing himself in dinosaur pee, and it runs 3 minutes longer than it should have. You know, and that's the problem with this movie is, once again, it's Will Ferrell not being reeled in, and it's Will Ferrell just going out there and doing whatever Will Ferrell wants to do, and the cast basically reacting and following suit. And the problem is that there's no real script. It's just kind of them going around doing whatever they want to do. And then it's like, oh, wait, we actually have to do something? Okay, here's the movie. And it's like, no, you've already lost us at this point. Where's the T-Rex? Because that's the only part of the movie that's actually got my interest. And then they ruin the T-Rex at the end of the movie, too. But, yeah, Land of the Lost, luckily, it's not for free anywhere, because don't watch it, because it's a huge epic disappointment, and it was one of those movies that almost made me quit on Will Ferrell. Yeah, but then he came out with the other guys, and I was like, okay, you're fine. But
Sean said, I wish I could quit you.
It was I swear there's been 2 times where I was gonna quit Will Ferrell, just because I was just like, I'm done watching his shitty versions of comedy. And then he came out with Stranger Than Fiction, where I was like, oh shit, Will Ferrell can act. And then he started going downhill again, and then he came out with the other guys. And I was like, okay, all right, Will, you survived. You have another 5 bad movies left in you before I quit you again. But we're moving on now to our revisited film. This film is a crime classic that I had not seen till this past week. This is one of those movies where it's like, you know how, and there's a lot of them for me, where there's a movie that's so iconic and you're like, I know I should see it, but then you just never do. That was this movie. It was like, I know I should see this film. I probably have to see this film at some point. But when the time comes to watch a movie that I haven't seen before, I'll choose anything else, or I'll watch something that I've already seen. But luckily, this show made me watch it. To my tag team partners, probably, happy glee that I've actually watched this now, if he ever actually watches this show. But our revisited film is the crime classic, The Untouchables. The Untouchables came out June 5th, 1987, had a weekend budget of had a budget of $25 million, had a weekend opening of $10 million. Number 2, its opening weekend behind Beverly Hills Cop 2 in its 3rd week, and had a finished box office of $76.27 million. Brian, since this is the first time for me watching, why don't you go ahead with The Untouchables?
Yeah, so The Untouchables, most people know the story. It's basically about the team trying to take down Al Capone. That's what you want to know. It's Elliot Ness. He kind of comes in and tries to put together this team to kind of go after Al Capone in any way. Like they even have an accountant who's going to go at it from like a tax evasion kind of angle. And he realizes the corruption within the police force. So he, recruits Sean Connery's character, who he knows is a good cop. He goes to they go to the academy because, as Sean Connery puts it, if you keep getting bad apples out of the bushel, you got to go pick one off the tree instead. So they go and get one straight from the academy who hasn't been corrupted yet, and that's where you get Andy Garcia's character. But so as they put this team together, I think it's a really well done. It's not really historical. I'm actually not sure how accurate any of it is. But it's still kind of a good chronicle of kind of that era and the fight against crime back then and with Al Capone and everything. Robert De Niro, I think, does some pretty cartoonish overacting in this movie. But then again, I think Robert De Niro often does cartoonish overacting. I know that's not a popular opinion around these parts. I don't give a shit. Kevin Costner kind of plays Kevin Costner. He's always kind of played himself, but in this is kind of the time period with this and Bull Durham in some of those movies
Field
where
Dreams.
what's that? Field Dreams,
Dreams.
where just playing himself, just playing a normal guy, just worked. You know, he wasn't trying to play. He's not the kind of actor who plays. You know, does characters. It does different. Real extravagant.
You were Robin Hood, damn it!
With a pretty bad accent in that when that came and went.
Obvious.
I still enjoyed the hell out of it, though. I don't care. But yeah, I mean, he does a good job here. Actually, the weirdest thought crossed my mind when I was watching this movie. Kevin Costner, at this age and this stage of his life, reminds me, this is weird, of Channing Tatum right now. I can kind of see Channing Tatum playing in this role.
Go! I'm intrigued now. Go on with.
No, just kind of his demeanor and the way he delivers some lines, and just even kind of looks a little bit. That it was just totally a random thought that popped into my head. I wasn't really going anywhere with it.
Let's not forget about his breakdance sequence on the bridge.
Yeah, there was that.
Yeah.
we started stripping off for Robert De Niro's character. But yeah, I mean, this is a movie that I think Sean Connery, I believe, won an Oscar for this.
He did. Yeah, supporting.
Yeah, and really, I really like the whole cast, beginning to end. As a Chicago area guy, I really enjoyed like a lot of the locations and stuff, just because I've been there. Like, there's the famous stair scene, with the baby carriage going down the stairs and stuff like that. I remember I went there a couple of years ago. I happened to be at Union Station with my wife, and I'm like, it's the Untouchable stairs, and she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm like, it's from the. Oh, never mind. You wouldn't appreciate it. So. But so I appreciate that just as a Chicago area guy. But I think it's a well-made movie. My only other complaint about it is the score, which the music itself is fine, but it's so bombastic and overbearing. It's often like intrusive and distracting. I just thought it was a badly used score in this movie. I don't know what they were trying to do with it, but it didn't work for me.
I'm just surprised that you're finally arguing the score of a movie. It's normally me, and you're finally like, the score was horrible. Normally it's me going, what the fuck is the score with this film? But yeah, for me, like, obviously, like, the main thing I knew from The Untouchables was, yes, the stair scene. And yes, Brian, I also know what it's like when I pinpoint something movie related, and I'm like, yeah, you see? No, I hate all of you. It's like I wish my friends understood me, which is why I got Brian here, so because he understands. I don't know how many times you and me have said the same thing at the exact same time. Today, I can't remember what we said. We were literally watching something. We both said it at the exact same moment, and I was just like, "That's why we're hosts together." You
get me, yeah.
Yeah, I get you. I mean, apparently they get you behind you. I mean, they just close their eyes and think of you fondly.
They all do.
Yeah, if there's one thing Brian has, he always got great posters behind him that just works well with the moment. But yeah, with The Untouchables, I had never actually seen that stair scene, in context. I mean, I've seen it spoofed. Wasn't it the Naked Gun films that spoofed it?
Well, there's originally a little film history lesson for you. Anybody out there who doesn't know, there's one of the earliest like a Russian film from like the 20s. Something like that. Battleship Potemkin, it's called. It's like this Russian epic. It's supposed to be like one of the great early films. But it has basically kind of the same stair scene in that movie. And so this movie kind of did it not as a ripoff. It's one of those things, kind of an homage, an homage, however you want to pronounce it, to that scene. And so it's done here. And then, yeah, I think they did something I'm not sure, was the first Naked Gun?
It was one of the Naked Guns.
One of them, yeah.
Leslie Nielsen being there.
Yeah.
But I mean, I finally got to see it and that is a very long scene. Like, they tease that scene forever. But I digress.
Even beyond the teasing, it goes on for because the entire scene is in slow motion too.
Oh yeah, but I digress. By the end of it, Andy Garcia looks like the coolest motherfucker alive.
Yeah, right.
You got him? Oh, I got him. Take him. It's like, Andy Garcia can never be as cool as he was at that fucking moment in his career. I've never seen him be any cooler than in that moment. Like, that is his, like, hey, chicks, did you see the scene of me in Untouchables? That's my moment. That's the one thing I took from the scene was that Andy Garcia is a pimp in this movie at that one moment. Here's a problem I got. This is a personal problem. This has nothing to do with the first movie. I was named after Sean Connery. That's my namesake. Everyone goes, why do you spell it S-E-A-N? My dad was a huge James Bond fan. Sean Connery was his favorite James Bond. So when I was born, he named me Sean for Sean Connery. Every time I fucking watch a Sean Connery movie, he fucking dies, and it's so fucked up. It's like, can I ever watch a Sean Connery movie where he doesn't die?
Are you sure you were named after Sean Bean?
I know. You fucking think so. But God, I was watching.
Any Sean who spells her name that way is destined to die. That's what we've learned. Cool.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, I was just watching the movie. I was just like I was watching it on Prime, and you know how like when if you scan like your mouse over something, like it'll pop up like the X-ray with scenes and shit. And I got spoiled. the fucking Prime spoiled me his death scene because like it was still like the guy was sneaking through the house, and I was like, oh, like Sean Connery's totally waiting for him, and then like. I think I just like grazed my mouse real quick, and then I saw so in the Sean Connery death scene. I'm like, what?
and that must have been especially frustrating because it's like kind of a surprising. I mean, spoilers, people, for this 30-year-old movie, but yeah, because it's like the guy's sneaking up to kill him, but then he totally catches him and drives him out of the house. And like, okay, he wasn't able to kill him, and then boom.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where, and in terms of the historicalness, literally when the accountant gets it. I like scanned over something that goes, fact, none of Ness's guys died during this thing. It was like, this is not historically accurate. No federal treasury people or whatever died during the whole Prohibition era thing.
And like, also, I mean, I believe the Untouchables was a TV show, wasn't it? Back in like the 50s or 60s or something.
I couldn't remember.
I want to say there was a TV show of the Untouchables. So this is almost kind of a version of the TV show, but at the same time, kind of just covered in subject as a movie. But either way, it's fictionalized, but it's based on true events. And
that was the funny thing too, is when I saw De Niro as Al Capone, I was like, wait, is this the Irishman? And I was like, wait, no, that's Pacino. That's Al Capone in The Irishman. I was just like, I got confused me for a second there because I was like, wait, which one was De Niro in that movie? I was like, oh yeah, wait, he's the guy who is like a 70-year-old man kicking a guy on the curb, really, really old. But yeah, he's doing De Niro in this. Like when you brought up his overacting, I was just like, that's just De Niro to me.
But he's doing like a spoof of De Niro practically. It's like if you told somebody, hey, do like a spoof of De Niro, that's what they would do.
I mean, okay, I can't defend that, nor am I going to. But I will say this, like I kind of agree with you on Connery, Costner. He's just, I mean, he's the main character, but he's also just kind of there. Like he's kind of like Wahlberg last week with Italian Job. He's the main character, but it's everyone around him that makes his character elevate. At least up until when Connery bites it. That's when Costner's character really kind of starts to elevate and become something that matters. Other than that, he's just kind of going along for the ride. I mean, this is Connery's movie. Connery, from the first time we see Connery to his scene in the is the church where he delivers that awesome monologue. He's like, if they bring a knife, you bring a gun. If they hurt your man, you put theirs in the morgue. That's
it's the Chicago way. Yeah,
that's the Chicago way. And then the one that you quoted. He's got great quotes in this movie. Like there's so many times where he talks like, God damn, Connery was so good. He was so good in this movie. And then even with him dying, like dude needs to get shot like 80 times and he still crawls away. It's still.
Yeah, that's the one thing is most people in this movie get shot one time and they're on the ground, not injured, not even dying, but they're just immediately dead. This guy gets hit with at least 20 of those bullets hit him.
Crawls away.
He's still crawling away. Still alive when Ellie Ness shows up 20 minutes later.
Unlike enough to give information and then bites it. Like because Connery's a badass. But
I just want to mention it because you were talking about the line Connery had. I didn't realize one of the writers on this was David Mamet, who was a great writer. So anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, you're fine. But like one person I actually kind of want to talk about that probably doesn't get any real recognition was Billy Drago, who plays Nitty, who to me is the real villain of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not Capone, because Capone doesn't really do anything in this movie except for kind of talk. Nitty is the guy. Nitty is the guy who basically kills everybody in this thing. He's the villain, and I think that actor actually did a really good job. He was a great foe, and then, to the point where we finally see Costner go bad, in a sense, break bad. at the end, and it's well deserved because Nitty's kind of been the one guy who's really been kind of effing everybody up, and like to me, like I didn't know what kind of movie I was getting into because I was like, oh, I know what the movie is, but I don't know exactly what kind of film I'm walking into until we see the opening scene where he blows up like the little girl.
Oh, I know.
Holy crap! Like, okay, I know what movie we're watching now. But and then even the one scene.
That's how you know it's like they're just trying to be clear. This is the bad guy because he killed a kid. Okay, it's him.
Yeah, like this is Mister. You dropped your. Holy crap! Okay, movie. Here we go. But yeah, Nitty's a great bad guy. He doesn't get enough lines to really talk, but when he does, he's always just egging him on, like because he's that bad guy who feels like he's untouchable, and until what happens. But and then like I said, another big shout out scene to Connery was when they're on the Canadian border and they're trying to get the guy to talk, and he goes and he grabs the dead body and he shoots him. It was just like, this was like,
the other guy's like, I'll talk.
He was like, I know what he's gonna do, but it's like this is such a badass moment for Connor, and he just does it. It's like that is so clever, but like awesome at the same time. And like even the part with Costner when he shoots the one guy, he gets mad. He's just like I told you to stop. It's like God, like he's just like because he didn't want to kill anyone.
Right.
Like it's. I really enjoyed this film. I had a blast watching it. Like it was definitely one of those because I'm always like I said I'm always worried when someone's like, oh, this is one of the greatest blah, blah, blah movies of all time. And then I watch it, I'm just kind of like, it's fine. Like, I don't love it. But I was watching Untouchables, and I was like, I mean, it's not one of the best crime movies ever by any means. But I was watching, I was like, I'm really, really enjoying this film. I'm not a big fan.
And as far as crime movies of like this era of crime, this is probably my favorite, honestly.
I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, personally. Like, especially the scene where, like, Costner goes up to Capone or De Niro in the court. He's like, you keep fighting until the end of the bell. I'm just like, dude, I would punch you in the face if you walked up to me to say, like, because to me that scene just felt janky. Because like De Niro doesn't understand what he's saying at first. He's got to repeat it again, kind of like a swarmy little douche. It's like that didn't work for me. Like he should have just said, like they should have just let him deliver the line once, had it hit, not have him have to repeat it like twice. Like it didn't, like that part didn't work for me. But then if you watch The Irishman, none of this amounted to anything because Capone ended up getting out, and they kept doing shit afterwards. But no, I really enjoyed The Untouchables. I thought it was a really, really solid film. I think it was definitely worth the hype that I heard for it. I liked it better than The Godfather. I mean, don't curse me on that, but I think
you already know how I feel about that. So yeah, I liked The Godfather.
The Godfather. It's one of those things like I can see that it's a great film. I just find it really boring. It's a great film. Yes, I'm not gonna say it's a shit film because it's not. It's just not my kind of movie. It's just.
Whereas like The Irishman, I don't think it's a great film either. I can't even make it past the hour mark of that movie. I've tried twice.
Irishman is boring and dull and sleep-inducing. I know what to watch when I need a real good nap.
Yeah,
is The Irishman because you get a nice 4-hour nap and it works great. And we've lost everybody. Anyway, okay. We're moving on to my film. This is one of my favorite 90s action films. I love this movie so much. Brian is not a fan, or at least he doesn't understand the love of this movie like I do. Like I said, I fucking love this movie. My pick is the 1997 Nicolas Cage action film, Conair. Conair came out June 6, 1997, had a budget of $75 million, had a weekend opening of $24 million. Number one, its opening weekend, its only week at number one, and had a finished box office of $224 million, $101 million domestic, and $122.89 million international. Yeah, I love this movie. This movie, I've watched this movie just about many times as I've watched The Rock or Gone in 60 Seconds. Those three are probably like my three favorite Cage movies. I love how over the top Malkovich is in this film. I love the cast. It's got a great cast. Like, yeah, Cusack, who we both love, John Cusack. He gets to be John Cusack in the film. Dave Chappelle is a relative nobody at this point in his career. He gets some great moments. Danny Trejo, Ving Rhames, who I personally love. The cast goes on and on and on. I love this movie. It's not like is it like an all-time classic? No, it's not. But I don't care. I fucking love it. And I don't know why I remember this, but one of my favorite moments of the movie is when Cyrus, played by Malkovich, is talking to Cusack and Cole Meany over the walkie, and he sings the song. I still remember that song. I've always remembered that song. Nothing makes me sadder when the agent lost his bladder on the airplane. He's such a good villain in this movie. I love this movie so much. Brian, I know you're not a fan of this film, at least not nearly as much as I am. I love Conair.
So here's the thing. I've always, from the very first time I saw this movie, I was very torn on it because, I mean, yes, this was out in that kind of late 90s to 2000 kind of area where Nick Cage was just making just glorious cheese. And you know, there was this, Gone in 60 Seconds you mentioned.
Face Off.
I'm not going to talk about Face Off. That movie was a pile of shit. But there's another one you mentioned. You mentioned 3 movies. It's Conair, Face Off, or The Rock. Well, which it wasn't Conair, but kind of that same kind of action stuff. But I mean, the action in it is fun. It's complete. It's super over the top, but it's good. You know, R-rated action. You know, this is before people started really softening everything for PG-13. John Cusack never gets to do action. He gets to have some fun in this movie. You know, do something a little bit different. You know, John Malkovich and actually all the cons, I guess you want to call them. They every single one of them is just totally just embracing the cheese and going over the top, and I'm fine with that because they're all just having fun with their roles. My biggest problem with this movie is Nicolas Cage, who
you gotta embrace the cage, man.
Nicolas Cage can be a good star. I mean, like I like Gone in 60 Seconds, some of these movies like this, and when Nicolas Cage is doing like, you know, comedy, like Raising Arizona, or, you know, I'm not sure, nothing jumping to mind, but I liked him in other roles too. But this one is like, he's doing this, first of all, his accent. Okay, let's just address this first. From the very first time he utters a line in this movie, I'm like, oh my God, what is this? Because it's like, it's almost comical how bad a fake accent he's doing. He's essentially doing the same voice he did in Raising Arizona, except there he's doing it for comedic effect. Here he's doing it and we're supposed to take him seriously. I'm like, I'm sorry, it does not work like that.
I love Nick Cage in this movie.
Oh my God, but his accent is so horrible. But I mean, like I said, I don't hate this movie. This is just like I think is how you described it at the beginning. It's just a movie that I have never gotten this undying love for. Now, I can understand it more for this than Face Off because, like I said, that one's a pile of shit. But we'll talk about that.
I love Face Off.
But I mean, this is a movie where, you know, it's got a great cast full of great, you know, character actors, not just stars, but everybody, like you said, Ving Rhames and Dave Chappelle and Danny Trejo, and a lot of these actors. I
forgot to say Buscemi.
Yeah, a lot of these actors we love who usually aren't the lead in movies. It's got Monica Potter, who at the time, she was doing a lot of movies around this time. I always thought, how did she not ever get cast as like Julia Roberts' younger sister? Because she looks, especially the facial expression and when she's talking, a lot like Julia Roberts. If there's a movie, there's a rom-com, random suggestion, a rom-com called The Very Thought of You. It has her and Joseph Fiennes in it. Very good. Check it out. But, you know, like I said, I don't hate this movie. I enjoy the action. You know, it's kind of over the top. Just, you know, we'd like to watch shit blow up. It's awesome. I get to watch some good character actors having lots of fun. I just have a hard time getting past Nicolas Cage.
But Nick Cage has got so many great lines in this movie. You know why you're ugly all day? Why didn't you put the bunny back in the box?
But might they have been better if they weren't done with such a horrible accent?
The accent is to me what makes it. If Nicolas Cage just said, you should have put the bunny back in the box, you know, or but put the bunny back in the box. Like
then it needed to be an all-out action comedy. They needed to lean more into the comedy if we're supposed to take this voice seriously.
It's Nick Cage doing his best Forrest Gump impression, and I think it's fucking great. I love it because all of his lines just don't treat women like that. It's like it's the accent that makes it work. Without that accent, Nick Cage's lines don't hit like they should. Like it's all because of the accent that makes it work. Every character, especially Malkovich, like I said, great lines. Like the part where he's like, Danny Trejo is just like, it'd be Johnny 600. He's like, well, I don't like rapists. You're right there between a cockroach and the white stuff that accumulates in the corner of your mouth when you're really thirsty. Such a good line. Same thing with him and Dave Chappelle. He's like, hey, did you really mean it when you called me a blank blank? Give me that gun. Of course I did.
And then this movie has these scenes like the one where Steve Buscemi's character is down like with that little girl. You're like, oh, can we like not go there? Come on.
They're teasing the whole thing. Is he going to kill the girl?
Yeah.
Super serial killer. He literally talks to Poe about how he wore a girl's head for 3 straight states. You know, so it's all there. That's a big tease. I was like, oh, is he going to kill the girl? And like they're doing the weird like first person view. Like, is he going to grab, rip her head off? And then you find out that he does it. But like, and then he's got that great scene where it's like defying irony. A bunch of cons dancing on a plane, singing to a song about a band who died while flying on a plane. Like, there's so many great lines in this movie. To me, it's not the action that sells this film. It's the dialogue. Everyone gets great little moments. Ving Rhames gets some great moments. Even, was it Nick Chinland, who plays Billy Bedlam? Like, he's got some great little lines. Like, I just love the...
He's the guy... Isn't he the guy in Tears of the Sun who I said never plays a good guy?
Yeah.
That's it. That was him we were talking about. That's right.
He never plays a good guy, except he's clean shaven in that one. That's why I didn't recognize him right away. But yeah, I really enjoy this film. I mean, you get the ridiculousness of like when they're in the boneyard. That's a fun scene. You get Sally Can't Dance, which is hilarious, especially when finally when Nick Cage gets a hold of him and he's gonna punch him. He's like, slap. She goes, ah! Like, there's just so many great. I love this movie. I do. It's one of my favorites. Like, I get that Con Air is not one of the best movies ever made, but to me, it is one of those guilty pleasure, kind of like how you and I are with Fifth Element, except that's sci-fi. Same thing with me with like Starship Troopers. I know you're not a big Starship Troopers.
I can watch this one like once every 10 years and be entertained.
And I can watch this like if it's on TV, I could have this on 10 times a year and watch it and have fun, because it's one of those movies where you could just pick up and watch it at different points and enjoy it because of the fun dialogue and how everyone's having a fun like experience with it. Like I said, Malkovich is having a blast doing this film because his dialogue, you can just tell that he's just like chewing up. Like we're talking about chewing up the scenery as a good villain. Sometimes it works really, really well, like in this case, and sometimes it doesn't. This is one of those cases where a really phenomenal actor is chewing up the cheese as the villain, and it's working incredibly well. And he's got a great cast around him, and then you got Cage doing, to me, the great Southern accent that, like I said, makes it work. But yeah,
and like I said, one of my favorite actors in the movie was John Cusack too. And this came out the same year as Grosse Pointe Blank, so he had a killer year.
Oh yeah,
killer year. I didn't mean to say that, but
I mean they finally let him do action stuff because Cusack's not an action star, and he gets Grosse Pointe Blank where he's got that great choreographed fight scene with the stuntman, and then you get him in this where he's wearing the sandals and stuff, but he still gets to be kind of a little badass moment. But yeah, I love this movie. If you guys have never seen Con Air, like what the fuck? Like how can you be a fan of Nick Cage and never have seen Con Air? Like the holy trinity to me of the Nick Cage is Con Air, Gone in 60 Seconds, The Rock, and Face Off. Like that's the holy trinity right there. And then you got all the other Nick Cage stuff around
Trinity
it.
means 3, just so you know.
Quadrility, fine. Whatever. I don't care. Shut up, Ryan. So like anyway, go watch Con Air. If you guys like some like popcorn, mind-numbing popcorn summer blockbusters, Con Air is definitely that film. Obviously, The Rock is better, but I mean, The Rock's more serious, but Con Air is the funnier cousin.
And you get Sean Connery, but yeah, but
it's got Sean Connery, Ed Harris, yeah.
But then here you get John Malkovich, who nobody plays kind of wacky like he does, wacky psycho like he does.
And that's the thing, is he's not even playing it wacky. He's just insane.
I guess I just meant more in like wacky in the way that there's that John Malkovich cadence, the way he delivers lines. Yes. That only it's like he has almost as distinct a way of talking as like Christopher Walken,
I agree. Anyway, that was my pick. We are now going to our last pick, which is basically my pick, but Brian took it. But I'm totally okay with it because I also love this movie so damn much. This is Brian's pick and our final movie of the episode. It is one of my favorite animated films of all time. It is DreamWorks' Kung Fu animation, Kung Fu Panda. Kung Fu Panda came out June 6th, 2008, had a budget of $130 million, had an opening weekend of $60 million. Number one, its opening weekend, its only week at number one, and had a finished box office of $631.74 million, $215.4 million domestic, and $416.3 million international. Yes, Brian, even though technically it's my movie, it is your pick.
No, technically it's my movie.
As I said, it technically was mine, but I let you have it.
Let me. Okay. Yeah. Sean. Yeah. So Sean had narrowed his down to a few, and this was one of them that he almost picked, but he didn't, which is good because I couldn't find anything else. So I'm like, you know what? If you're not using that, I'm taking it. So it worked out. Yeah. Kung Fu Panda is a movie that it's one of those movies that came out, and I had no expectations for it, or maybe even low expectations for it. It's like, oh, okay, they're going to take Jack Black and put him in this, fat panda trying to do kung fu, and there'll be lots of slapsticky comedy about the fat guy, falling down, and it could have very easily just been, the easy jokes and nothing to it, which obviously there are some of that kind of comedy to it, but it actually is a movie that not only is it got some great martial arts action to it. I mean, even just from a martial arts standpoint, I think the fights are super well done.
Oh, visually, it's fantastic.
I'll get to that. But it's a movie that's got heart to it. It's unexpectedly kind of a lot of heart to it. But it's a movie that's funny. It's a movie that's heartfelt. It's a movie that's got good action to it. And then, yes, the visuals of this movie are phenomenal. Even the beginning of this movie is does a 2D animation, but
it's like Japanese.
It's
anime.
almost like an anime. It's kind of a 2D stylized animation, which I'd be perfectly happy if the whole movie was done like that, because even that animation I thought looked really cool. But then the 3D animation on this thing is just amazing. I mean, I think DreamWorks at this point, in my opinion, had surpassed Pixar as far as how I think their animation looked. Now, since then, they've kind of gone up and down because there's the Shrek movies are not good and all that. Even if you think the Shrek movies are funny, the animation and the character design is still kind of janky and all this.
I just don't think they really updated their design past the first film. Basically.
Yeah. But this movie, I think, looked beautiful. I think the actual animation of it and the way they brought all the action scenes to life are really well done. It's almost like the cinematography is done like it was a real film. I think the colors are beautiful in this. Once again, I'm going to talk about the score, which obviously kind of had that Asian kind of inspired score to it, which I thought was excellent. And they had a great cast of people. I mean, you have these big stars like Angelina Jolie and Dustin Hoffman and all these people they're basically taking supporting roles in this movie. And, a lot of times I'm not a big fan of casting big names as voices just because they're big names. Like, why don't you cast just, even if they're just nobodies, cast the best voices for it? But here I thought everything worked. One of the best being Ian McShane, who makes a great villain. I mean, he's been great ever since the Deadwood days and things like that. But I think he is one of the highlights of this movie. But I've talked for a long time. What do you think, Sean?
You didn't really talk that long. No, I think when you think of DreamWorks, I think it is a three pillars. It's Shrek, it's Kung Fu Panda, and it's How to Train Your Dragon. I think those are the three pillars of DreamWorks. Everything else is kind of around it. But yeah, Shrek. Shrek started it all off, and then Kung Fu Panda and How to Train Your Dragon came right behind it. And like you said, I'm gonna basically repeat a lot of what you said. Visually, this movie is fucking gorgeous. There's so many scenes where even by today's standards, I still go, wow, that looks amazing. Like, there's the one scene where when the dragon scroll falls and Dustin Hoffman, Shofu catches it and it does the perfect ring around the water. There's basically everything with the turtle, Oogway. Where he's playing with stuff and all that, and everything about this film looks gorgeous. The voice cast is great. Jack Black was born to play a panda. He was born to play a panda. He was born
perfect for this role. Perfect for it.
I cannot think of anyone else who could have played Poe better than Jack Black. This is Jack Black's best performance. I know
especially with the personality that they gave, which I'm sure is mostly because Jack Black is perfect. So.
I cannot envision anyone else playing Poe. Yes, a lot of people might say Jack Black's best performance is School of Rock. Live action, sure. But Jack Black Poe, not Pick of Destiny, but Tenacious D as a whole, absolutely. I love Tenacious D. But Jack Black as Poe, to me, is the most perfect casting I could obviously imagine. I was watching this movie, I was like, I think this is Jack Black's calling. To basically play this panda. He has, and like I said, Jack Black does something, Jack Black can either go super over the top with his comedy, which we see in a lot of his live action, but Jack Black's also a really great actor. And to show Poe, who is this panda who obviously feels kind of in the way, doesn't feel like he belongs because his father is a goose, right? Mm-hmm. He's a goose. Obviously, he doesn't belong here, but he's envisioned of doing something better, doing something that he's always dreamed, and he gets forced kind of into it. And just watching him, like I said, that heart, that never give up heart, like he doesn't believe in himself, but he grows into becoming the dragon warrior by the end of the film. But even then, he doesn't let it overtake him. Like, he's super humble of a character, and Jack Black plays it great. And his dialogue, his comedic tone, his comedic approach to things. Like, there are so many times where he will say something and it'll be a little quip at the end. Like, I have all your action figures. You guys are all so much bigger person, except for you, Mantis. You're it's like that line, or when he is eating monkey's cookies and stuff, and he's like, don't tell monkey. It's just so many great little moments where he always has this last little dagger at the end of his lines that is such a Jack Black thing to do, but it works so well as Poe. Like I said, the rest of the voice cast is Seth Rogen, Lucy Liu, Jackie Chan, David Cross, Dustin Hoffman as Chifu, Angelina Jolie as Tigress. I agree. Ian McShane as Tai Lung is amazing. And I've said this on the show before, and I'm going to repeat it again, his jailbreak scene sold me so many thousands upon thousands of dollars in surround sound. That scene alone, I don't know what won the Oscar for sound design that year. Kung Fu Panda should have been nominated for sound design. That scene alone is, and I know you're looking it up because I can hear the clicking.
I am.
But the sound design in that scene alone is masterful. If you guys have never if you guys have great speaker systems or whatever, play just the jailbreak scene of Kung Fu Panda. That sound in that scene alone is a fucking masterpiece. It is the best. It's one of the best sounding scenes I've ever seen in a movie, period. I love that scene. I've watched that scene. And not just the sound. It is a masterful, gorgeous scene in and of its own, where you have the part where Tai Lung is reaching up and you see all the red arrows shooting down on him. That scene is beautifully gorgeous. It sounds amazing, and it's brilliantly shot. It's like Brian was saying, the choreography of the fight scenes in this. It's an animated film. It feels like a real life film. It is shot, choreographed. The fighting, everything looks amazing in this movie. Even at the end, when Tai Lung and Poe fight, it looks amazing. Even the fight between Shofu and Tai Lung looks amazing. I cannot think of one thing in this movie that I do not like. This is one of my favorite animated films, and for good reason. From beginning, like I said, the opening number that you were talking about looks amazing. I also wouldn't have been upset if the film was like that the whole way through. It spawned 2 sequels. The second sequel, I really, really enjoyed. The third sequel, I thought was fine. I really need to watch the third one again. I have not seen it.
Yeah, because the second one I love almost as much as the first one.
I agree.
Maybe even more, depending on which one I watched most recently.
Exactly.
The third one, I would say, is the weakest of the bunch. But even that, I think, is an excellent movie.
It's better than most animated films out there. Yeah. I love the Kung Fu Panda trilogy, the franchise as a whole. Do I wish that we could get more? Obviously, because I love these characters. I love Jack Black as Poe, but I realized that if they kept making more and more and more, it would probably saturate the whole thing. We probably wouldn't love it as much. But this film as a whole, and I'd have to rewatch the second one again just to get my love for it back again because it's been so long. But Kung Fu Panda, to me, is one of the best animated films I've ever seen. It is gorgeous. It's funny. It's got a heart. It looks and sounds fucking amazing. Brian, did you figure out who beat it?
Sound mixing was won by Slumdog Millionaire, and sound editing was won by The Dark Knight. So yeah.
But it should have at least been nominated.
It should have. I mean, WALL-E got nominated for both of those. Which WALL-E is the movie that beat this out for best animated film of that year. Which I don't complain because I love WALL-E. I think WALL-E is a beautiful
WALL-E,
film.
and spoiler alert, we're gonna talk about WALL-E on this show.
So I have no problem with WALL-E having won, but Kung Fu Panda for me is right up there.
Yeah, it is a fantastic animated film. I would say if you guys have never seen it, but let's face it, everyone's seen Kung Fu Panda. But I don't think a lot of people have watched Kung Fu Panda the way they probably should appreciate it and should watch it. Like I said, if you guys have seen Kung Fu Panda and you guys are like, wow, Brian and Sean are really, really talking this movie up to nauseating levels, watch it the way we're watching it. I swear to God, you're going to see Kung Fu Panda in a wholly different kind of light, especially, like I said, watch that jailbreak scene.
Well, here's my thing is, I mean, while the movie is clearly enjoyable from kids, funny animals, kind of point of view, watch this movie just as an adult. As they just happen to be animals, but just watch it as a film with the characters and the action scenes and everything, and you'll just appreciate it on a whole other level, in my opinion.
Like I almost don't want to say watch it like in slow mo because I don't mean that at all. But
no.
Watch the intricacies of like the one scene where Poe and Shofu are training and he's trying to get the last dumpling, and like they're having the chopstick fight. Watching the intricacies of that fight, it is masterful how brilliant and how amazing they make that scene look. And yes, it is annoying hearing the scratching of the bowl, but it makes sense. That's what it would sound like. And then just watching the fight, the final fight to that fight, everything looks so fantastic. I wish Kung Fu Panda got more recognition than it's gotten because it deserves so much more recognition than it's gotten. It's fantastic. I love Kung Fu Panda. Brian, anything else you want to add with Kung Fu Panda?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it nauseating levels, but I don't care because we fucking love that. But that is the end of the episode today. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you guys did, hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And, of course, don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we have The Conjuring, the third Conjuring film, The Devil Made Me Do It. That's going to be out sometime here between now and this weekend. So we're going to look out for that. In the Heights. We'll probably have our next episode out probably before In the Heights comes out. But that's coming out here. That is one of Brian's most anticipated films of the year. I will probably say I wasn't excited for it, but I'm hearing a lot of fantastic things, which is making me kind of excited to see it. So we'll see exactly. Maybe we'll have Brian do a co-review with me on that one because that is one of his most anticipated films. But we got those. But we also, once again, have the Weekend Crusaders. We have a new episode coming out next week. 5 more movies. It's for the most part, a comedy-filled episode. Whether it's intended to be
intentional or not,
or intentionally not supposed to be a comedy. It's a very comedy-filled episode. We got one movie that Brian and I have brought up a ton on this show. We're finally going to talk about it. It is a 90s teen comedy that Brian and I have talked about at nauseating levels, and we're going to do it again this time on the show. We've got a action film that probably is not appreciated the way it should be. It's one of those little unnoticed gems that Brian and I both were like, I really like this movie. I like this movie too. Really? All right, let's talk about it. And we're going to do that. We have a stinker that I despise. And I literally have a conspiracy theory about this movie, which anyone who knows me has probably already heard this, but y'all probably haven't, so I'm going to say it again on the episode. I have a conspiracy theory about the stinker film we'll go over. We've got a comedy from a franchise. It's my favorite of the franchise. It's another one that Brian does not like, but we're going to watch it anyway. And then we got Brian's pick, which is another comedy. What's that? Yeah, right. And we got another comedy that's Brian's pick that I think is hilarious. but I don't think I've watched it since it came out.
With one of this week's stars, isn't it?
Yes, one of the people we talked about today is in that movie. I think also one of the people we talked about today is in one of mine as well. Oh no, two of them are in that movie. There's a lot of people that we talked about this week that are going to be in next week as well. Figure out what those movies are. Until next time, we are the Weekend Crusaders. I'm Sean Walsh-Group, that's Brian Michaels. In case we don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.
You're still here? It's over. Go home.